Welcome to the Fairisle Club. So here I'm going to demonstrate how to actually Fairisle. In your first parcel you will receive a how-to booklet with images, and this is really what I'm going to demonstrate physically so you can actually see what's happening. First of all, there's just a few things I just want to mention. So this is a standard chart, similar to the one that you'll be receiving in your pattern. And first of all charts are read in the same way. So for right side row, it's read from right to left, and a wrong side row from left to right. Now, because you're knitting Fairisle flat, one of the most common mistakes people make is that they, on a wrong side row, still read from right to left, and you don't, you read from left to right. You may find it easy if you actually write WS for wrong side here and an arrow going that way, and then the same the other side for the right side, and that just helps. Also, another tip is to find yourself some low tack tape or one of those magnetic strips where you can actually cover up the row that you've just done. That helps you so that you don't get mixed up on what row you're actually knitting. This low tack tape's quite good because once you've done a row you can just remove it, just rip it off, and it doesn't take the print off and then move it up. It's just a standard low tack highlighter tape which you can get from most office suppliers. So the next thing I'm going to say is that for Fairisle knitting, it's much easier if you can separate your colours, and in this way it'll help prevent your yarns from tangling. So your main colour you have on your right hand side, your pattern colour on your left hand side, obviously the opposite way around if you're left handed. The main colour is dictated to by the number of stitches that colour is used on a row. So on this row, for example here, the white square, that colour is used predominantly on that row, so that's going to be my main colour. The circle is not used very much, so that is going to be the pattern colour. So as I say, if you can keep them separated, it does help the yarns, prevents them from tangling. So I'm now going to start off by joining in the pattern colour. I'll start by just knitting. This is just a demonstration, so I'm not actually looking at the chart at this point. So I'm just going to knit a couple of stitches, and then I'm going to join in the pattern colour. Leave an end enough to weave in or to sew in at the end, and just lay it over your needle and then knit it. Now I tend to start weaving in on the next stitch basically, so I'm now going to knit the next stitch. So you actually take that end and lay it over the yarn you're about to knit, like so. And then if I'm only weaving in one end, then I weave in every other stitch. So I'm going to knit the next stitch, and then I'm going to weave in for the next stitch here. And now I'm going to start Fairiling. I'm going to start stranding. So with my main colour, I'm now going to strand across, and I'm going to knit 2 stitches. Now you will see I am not bunching up these stitches. If you have your stitches nice and evenly spread like that, and you gently lay the actual yarn you're about to knit over, as so, it is not going to bunch up or pucker your stitches. If my stitches were like so, and then I went to strand, you can see obviously that strand or float is going to be too tight, and when those stitches are released, it will actually pucker your knitting. That's another mistake that people make when they're new to Fairisle. So make sure your stitches are nicely spread, not spread out, pulled out, but just gently, just nice and evenly spread. Take your yarn and just gently sort of lay it over. I'm slightly tensioning it, but I'm not pulling it in any way. So, and then I'm going to knit the next stitch, as so. The next stitch is still my main colour, but I can still I'm still going to carry on weaving in that previous end. So again, you take your end and lay it over the yarn that you're about to knit. like so. Okay, I'm now going to knit my pattern colour again, as so, and again I'm going to knit that there, and then I'm going to weave in that end probably for the last time. So you need to weave it in for a good inch basically, and then you can actually forget about it. So I'm now going to carry on the rest of the row fariling. Now when you're new to fariling, it's much better if you actually pick up and drop each of the pattern colour and the main colour. So I'm now going to, like so, I'm now going to knit the main colour, so, and I'm going to knit 3 stitches like so, drop that, and then pick up your pattern colour. Okay, drop that, pick up your main colour, drop that, pick up your pattern colour, and you carry on until like that until the end of the row. Doing it in this way, you'll get used to doing Fairisle technique, but once you get to the point where you're finding it quite easy to do, you can then speed up your Fairiling by holding your main colour constantly in your right hand if you're right-handed, left-handed if you're left-handed, and in that way then you do speed up. And that's how I actually knit Fairisle. I don't knit it actually with both yarns in the same hand or separately. I actually hold the main colour constantly in my right hand and pick up and drop the pattern colour. So we'll now go on to show you how to do it on a wrong side row. To do the same thing but on a wrong side row, so with the main colour I'm going to knit purl 3 stitches. So I'm picking up the main colour, so 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to pick up the pattern colour as so, and then pick up and drop on the main colour like so. And if you pick up in the same order each time, so I'm always picking up the pattern colour like so, your yarns will never twist. So it doesn't matter if the yarn's coming up above or below the other yarn, but as long as you're consistent and it's in the same way, same direction, your yarns won't twist. But the fact that you've got your pattern yarn and your main yarn separate on either side of you, again, will show you if you are accidentally twisting your yarns. It's quite important to try and not twist your yarns, because if you end up twisting your yarns, it can actually alter the look and feel and tension of your actual finished Fairisle. So it's a good thing to try and concentrate, to do. But once you're getting used to doing Fairisle knitting and you're actually starting to knit it a bit quicker and you're holding one of the yarns, if not both of the yarns, in one hand or two hands, then it's even more difficult to be able to twist your yarns then, because physically the fact you've got holding one yarn constantly in one hand means that it's always going to be knitted in the same direction. So you carry on to the end of the row like that, and now I'll demonstrate how I actually do Fairisle knitting on another right side row. I'm now going to demonstrate how to Fairisle using, I'm going to hold the main colour constantly in my right hand, and as I mentioned before, this is how I actually Fairisle. So I tension my main yarn as I normally do for when I knit, and I just lay that over my fourth finger, but obviously everyone does it differently. So I'm going to knit a few stitches in the main colour. I need to do 3. Well, as I say, I'm not actually following the chart as such, as I'm just demonstrating to you. I'm going to do 4 there. I'm now going to pick up my pattern colour. So I'm leaving that in my hand, and then I'm just going to pick up the pattern colour and then just knit that. Do 3 stitches with that, and I'm dropping it because I've still got that in my, I've still got the main colour in my right hand. I can just literally just carry on knitting with that colour. Then I drop it when my chart dictates, and then pick up your pattern colour. And as you can see, it's more difficult to twist your yarns basically, because I'm constantly holding that. So it's impossible basically for it to go under there, because you know that you're picking up and dropping that. So it's just a case of, you know, just making sure that your yarn is being stranded or floated in the same direction each time. Just make sure your stitches aren't too spread out. As so. Now, because you're using felted tweed, I'd recommend that you don't float or strand over more than 5 stitches. If the sections of the pattern, you might come across a few sections of patterns on a few squares where you may have to float over 7 or even 9 stitches, in which case then, in the case of 7 stitches, you would knit 3 and then you would actually trap in or weave in your pattern colour so the float isn't so big. It's the same as the weaving in, like we did when you're weaving in a new colour, end of a new colour. It's exactly the same thing. But unfortunately, the downside to this is that your yarns will twist. There is no way around that. So as soon as you've done it, I would just untwist those yarns so you can carry on without having to have your yarns twisted. And then carry on until the end of the row, like so. Right, I'm now going to demonstrate the same technique, holding the main colour constantly in my right hand and picking up and dropping the pattern colour. One thing I should have mentioned before, when working Fairisle on the wrong side row, you'll find it much easier if you put both ends of yarn over your right hand needle, like so. It's much easier to pick up and drop them. So I'm now going to knit a few stitches in the pattern colour. So I'm now going to do 3 stitches like so, drop that, and I'm going to knit or purl 3 stitches in the main colour. I'm keeping hold of my main colour in my same hand, and then just picking up the pattern colour. Drop that, and then pick up the main colour. And carry on like that across the rows. Right, my friend Gwyneth is now going to demonstrate the two-handed method of Fairisling, or the continental picking method of Fairisling. But in this technique, you can still see that she has her main colour in her right hand and the pattern colour in the left hand.
So I'm going to do 2 stitches in the main colour, as I would do the normal knitting. And then I want the contrast colour, so I'm just going to pick it from my left hand, flicking it through. 2 more in main colour. Again, just let them spread softly on your needle. 2 stitches in the main colour and 2 stitches in the left hand colour. Takes a little bit of practice, but it can be a really quick way when you get a bit practiced at it. And I'll just carry on to the end of the row.